Strings are very similar to vectors since they are stored as a vector of bytes. The difference is that strings are guaranteed to always be a valid UTF-8 sequence. A string will be allocated on the heap, is growable, and is not null terminated. There are a couple of different ways you can allocate a string. The first one, we will create a variable called name and say string from, and then we will provide the string. And then if you just hover over string, it'll tell you it is a UTF-8 encoded growable string. Another way that we can create a string is say let course equals rust to string. So both of these are the same thing. They're both strings. They're both on the heap. They're growable and they're not null terminated. So what we can do, much like vectors, is we can modify strings. So let's change my name and we'll call this variable new name and say we want to name replace, we want to go from Tyler, and then we want to change it to Ty. So let's just go ahead and print all these out and see what we get. So we have name, and then we will copy and paste it 2 more times. We have course, and we have new name. So let's go ahead and build it. We have Tyler, Rust, and Ty, which is what we were all expecting. So now we also have what is known as a string slice or stir. So we'll put in here and str equals string slice or stir. So that's how you can pronounce that. And much like a slice in a vector, it is going to reference and borrow the text from the variable. So like other slice references, it is a fat pointer containing both the address and the actual data and its length. You cannot modify a string slice. So let's see how you can create a string slice. So we'll just call this string1 and we'll set it to hello. And that's all you have to do. This is a string slice. So just to prove it to you, in case you don't believe me, we're going to do a nifty little trick on how to get it to point out. So we'll just come in here and type in a bogus method. So this will obviously produce an error in the compiler. So let's go ahead and build it. And as you can see, it produced the expected error. And you can see that our type is a string slice. So you might be wondering when to use a string or a string slice. And for now, it will suffice to say that a string slice can refer to any slice of a string, whether it is a string literal or a string. And I will show you what a string literal is in the very next lecture. So what it means is that a string slice is more appropriate for function arguments when the caller should be allowed to pass either kind of string, so either a string or a string literal. And remember, a string slice does not allocate memory on the heap where a string does. But we can also flip-flop between string slices and strings. So we have our string slice here, so let's create and say string 1 dot to string. So now we just converted string 1 into a string and stored it inside of string 2. And now let's turn string 2 back into a string slice. So we will go and str2. So now if we print all these out, every single one of them is going to print out hello. And all we did was bounce back and forth between a string slice and a regular string, which is exactly what happened. So much like vectors, strings have a ton of methods already associated with them. We can compare strings using the double equal signs to validate if the strings are equal to one another, or exclamation point equal signs to mean does not equal. So we're trying to make sure two strings do not equal each other. So just to show what this might look like, let's go ahead and print it out, a sample. So we're going to check if 1 dot 2 lowercase equals 1. So we're going to take all capital 1, change it to lowercase, and then compare it and see if it equals to all lowercase 1s. And so we would expect this to return true, which is exactly what we get down here. So everything returns true. So those are the basic fundamentals of strings and string slices. We will continuously use these throughout the course, so you will be getting more than enough experience using them to gain familiarity and just get more comfortable with when to use what and where. But I do encourage you, prior to going on to string literals, play around with string sum and look at all the methods that are associated with them. And when you're comfortable with it, continue on to the next lecture of string literals.